YouTube, what is up? I'm your homeboy Josh, back at you, and minus some technical difficulties, we are here finally for live stream. We're going to go ahead and put together a build together. I hope I'm coming through okay. I'm not using my usual camera. I'm just using the camera on my computer because my damn webcam is not working. The video wouldn't like export for the build. Nothing was working right. My house is leaking. It's like everything that could go wrong went wrong in the past hour. I don't know what is going on, but here we go. All right. So today we're going to put together a Staple Helix coil, okay? And for this build, what we're going to do first is we're going to go ahead and put together a bit of a twist. And we're using some 28 gauge nichrome to go ahead and do that. Now, the staple itself is going to be some 0.3 stainless steel ribbon wire from KB. I finally got a chance to try out KB Vapers ribbon wire. Bought some on eBay. It's some awesome stuff, man. It's like, it colors up beautifully. It just vapes wonderfully. And we'll get to it in the wrapping, but it's glorious wrapping this shit. So getting started on the twist is just like twisting wire, any wire together. It's a matter of, it's all good, Mitch. It's all good. We'll be all right. So getting this all situated is just a matter of taking this bit of 28 gauge wire and taking it off the spool. What I do is I don't believe in measuring precisely. I'm not big on that kind of thing. I like to just go ahead and measure with what I have. What I have is my arms. I'm just taking that wire and I'm stretching it across just like this. And then I find the nearest place where I can anchor it onto the spool and rip it off. Well, cut it off, really. From there, it's anchoring it on into the drill. Basically, I just fold it in half, anchor the two ends into the drill, and go ahead and twist it. And the way I twist is I always take a screwdriver and I put it into the wire and I just let it rip from there, holding it between my knuckles like that. The screwdriver in my hand like this, stretching out the wire, and I just go ahead and let it rip with the drill. Now you might notice this is not the drill that I normally use. This is the drill I normally use. I picked up this wire drill from the Walmart, and I gotta say, working with a wire drill, it's different. I don't use it a whole lot here. I actually put together a build today using this a little bit more, but it does 5,000 RPMs, which is pretty awesome. That's kind of why I upgraded the drill. I wanted something that I could get from one end of a Clapton or fuse Clapton to the end of a fuse Clapton without it just, taking forever. Yeah, Mike, I've wanted to try them for a while, and I've just never had the opportunity. So it was kind of awesome just grabbing some and giving it a try. So that was pretty cool. What was I saying? Yeah, the drill. It's awesome. 5,000 RPMs. Put it in perspective, the drill I normally use is 800 RPMs. Basically, Dwayne, the co-creator of Coil Wars, yes, we're making Helix coils mainly because it's Helix Coil month over on the Coil Wars Instagram page. And 2 weeks' time, is the deadline, the 27th of January, I believe it was. I'll have to double check the Instagram feed. But 27th of January is the deadline to get your Helix Coil builds into the Coil Wars page. And 5 builders are going to be elevated up to the judging panel. And we'll have an episode of Coil Wars battles coming up. So that's going to be fun. I'm excited for that. So yeah, Dwayne Rambo, Mr. Rambo, co-creator of Coil Wars, has been for the longest time. He's a speed freak. He loves his speed. He loves being able to do aliens at 3,000 RPMs and all that. And the other day, last build I put together, I want to say, it was when I made that Staple Tiger Helix. Making the Clapton wire for the alien just took forever. And I just decided right then and there I needed to go ahead and start using a corded drill that could do something just a little bit faster to help me get through those sorts of tedious portions of the build. Anyway, so once that wire is all twisted up, we're going ahead and we are taking our 0.3 ribbon wire. And what I like to do, the way I like to stack my ribbon wire is I take a strand off the spool, just, basically my arm's lengths, fold it in half, and then once it's folded in half, I put it through the swivel tools. Because I'm going to work from the swivel tools here anyway, and it makes it easy for me to go ahead and do that. To enter a build on the Coil Wars page, all you need to do is tag Coil Wars. Well, you can hashtag don't @ symbol Coil Wars when you put in a build because we won't see it. But what you can do is do a hashtag. We will find it eventually, but doing a tag where it shows up in the pictures of Coil Wars, we'll definitely see it and we'll get it posted up real quick. Yeah, so getting that ribbon wire situated, what I do is I got my stack, and once I've put that on the spool, the fishing swivel, I've got 4 strands of stacked ribbon wire. And then if I want 8, like I do in this build, I just go ahead and do that again. Now the thing about doing that is that the ends, when they're bent at the ends, it doesn't work so well once you're trying to bring all the wire together. The swivels I use, I think they're like size 120 or something like that. I don't remember. I've got a link in some of the build videos that I do that shows you the link in Amazon, and I think it's size number 6 or something. Anyway, so if I want 8, I just do that process twice. Clip off the end so it's good and tight, and then it's a matter of getting all this ribbon wire aligned. Getting the ribbon wire aligned, I'm a big fan of using spit. Some people find that gross, is my understanding. I don't really see the big deal about it because I'm using, it's for me, it's my build. I'm not building this for anyone else. So whatever, I don't build for other people, I just build for me. People ask me all the time if I will sell my coils or whatever. I don't do that. I just make my own coils for me. But yeah, spit is just excellent. It acts like almost like glue on this ribbon wire. You can also use water if you're more sensitive to that. Water works really well. If you don't mind getting e-juice on your fingers, e-liquid works really well. I'd probably use Zero Nic if you're going to do that. But it works. Anything like that works to get that ribbon stacked and pliable. If you run your fingers through it about 15, 16 times getting it wet, it pretty much sticks together until it dries pretty much, which takes a good while, long enough for you to get everything situated and get started making your staple or making whatever you're making with your stacked ribbon wire. It was the folding the ribbon wire is a trick from Joshua Apathy Miller. Use piss? That's gross. Anyway, Joshua Apathy Miller threw that up in the comments in one of my videos, and I've been doing it ever since. Not quite the way he suggested. I kind of took his folding method and went my own way, but it does the trick. And what I use to get everything together, you can use all kinds of different things to stick the ribbon wire together once you get the ribbon stacked right. You can use tape. A lot of people use tape. You can use glue. Hot glue is really great for it. A lot of times I just like to use 40 gauge wire. 40 gauge wire is great to go ahead and just wrap it around there. I kind of grip it in my thumb and forefinger just like that, and then I wrap just like this with my other hand. And it makes it really easy to go ahead and get that wire all stacked together and staying that way long enough for me to do what I need to do. What's up, Dwayne? How you doing, man? Do they really? Some people only use distilled water? That's crazy. Yeah, but I guess so. I mean, some people, people who sell their coils, they really want to go that extra mile. So a lot of times that kind of thing can make sense. What's up, man? Flavor Chasers. Anyway, from there, it's just clip off the excess wire, and once again, I take a little bit more time and go through it again using spit, using whatever's available to get it good and tight together, get it all packed in. Yeah, there you go. Anyway, so the ribbon wire that I would recommend for using would be 0.5 millimeter ribbon wire or lower. 0.5 will work. It's going to ohm out. The higher the gauge in the ribbon wire, the harder it's going to be for you to wrap it around a screwdriver when it comes time to coil it up. It's also going to ohm out lower. So that's why I ended up wanting to grab some 0.3. For the longest time, I've only ever used 0.5, and I wanted to give it a try with some lower gauges. So I grabbed some 0.4, I grabbed some 0.3. Yeah, pretty excited when that package came in. KB, when I got it on eBay, it was like this sweet package. I got like everything from 30 gauge on up to 40 gauge, like 30, 32, 34, 36, 38, 40. And it was 250 feet. And it was, awesome because it was like 20, 30 bucks for all that. It was really affordable, like shockingly affordable. I couldn't really believe that price tag for the KB wire. It was better than Lightning Vapes. Now, I will tell you that in my experience taking it off the spool, it kind of does what Lightning Vapes does, and it kind of sticks when you're taking it off the spool. I've had that experience with Lightning Vapes. I've had that experience with KB. I've heard that things, more expensive wire, it doesn't get tangled up as easily. I haven't had that experience yet, but I haven't used really nice wire. I've really just used, KB, and I've used Lightning Vapes. But I've always noticed that the way it comes off the spool, it can kind of get caught on things sometimes. Like it's like the spool didn't wrap right. It's kind of annoying. So I don't know if anyone has any good ribbon wire that I should go try that doesn't do that comes off the spool nice and neat. I'd love to hear some suggestions, especially if it's affordable. I mean, I hear that all these things about these, high-end wires, but they're expensive, and it's I want to know it's worth it. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, so what are you looking at for or doing right there? What am I doing here? Okay, so what I'm doing here is I'm basically making sure that wire is just stacked together properly, that nothing is misaligned. Like the wire that's on the outside right is staying on the outside right. The wire on the outside left is staying on the outside left. And then there's nothing bunching together. Sometimes the wire can kind of, you know, it can misalign itself. Like the outside wire can end up in the middle for some reason. It's a matter of working through it in prep work. This build and a lot of builds are all about proper prep work. It's about taking the time to get yourself prepared from the beginning so that you don't run into problems at the end. It's about just being patient with it, because taking the time in the beginning, it's going to make things a lot easier. If I don't take the time with ribbon wire, stacking ribbon wire properly, when it comes time to wrap that ribbon wire, what's going to happen is it's basically just going to warp. Or when you wrap it, you'll notice that 2 or 3 strands just kind of become misaligned, and you're trying to lay them all vertical is the goal with a staple. You want all those ribbon wires stacked together vertically. But if one of them becomes misaligned and goes horizontal, it ruins the whole coil, ruins the whole build. And taking the time to prep it in the beginning, that can prevent something like that from happening. No. So that's what I'm doing there. Did I mean to actually keep this on the video quite this long? No. But that's okay. We're getting through it together. No, it's good that you see, because I mean, this is, pretty close to, the amount of time I will take, aligning my ribbon wire. Some people might go a bit faster than I do when they're building certain coils. The thing about me is I get to build a coil once a week at most. That's as much as I get to do it. Some people do this, all day long, every day, and they become just, amazing at this stuff. And I wish I had that kind of time, but, I don't in general. So things that I do take me a little bit longer than most people. And, I take extra time with the prep work because I hate wasting wire. Anyway, so at this point, what I'm doing, and I couldn't get a great shot of this, I realized, was I am working to get the twisted wire up against the ribbon wire. What I do is I just kind of slip it through behind the ribbon wire stack. And is 32 the smallest? No, 32 is not the smallest. I mean, they make wire on up to 50 and higher. I mean, I've never used 50. I kind of want to, but it's expensive. It's very expensive wire. Pure Atomist has it. I noticed some people mentioned Pure Atomist in the comments with the ribbon wire and kidney puncher, and they're definitely on my list. I really want to try them both. At some point, I'll pick some up. But aside from stacking ribbon wire, you can use them for tigers. I have a Staple Tiger tutorial up. It's an easy build. It's a fun build. It's basically staple up 2 strands of ribbon wire, 2 strands. That's it. So you're not really stacking much. Fold it in half and twist it. That's it. It's a fun build. There's lots of builds you can do with ribbon wire. Lots and lots of builds. There's transformers. There's snakes. There's plenty of them. I mean, it's endless. I mean, that's the point of coil building. I mean, coil building, the possibilities are endless. You can do a lot of different things just with round wire. I mean, round wire builds, you can go crazy, you know. The possibilities really just don't end. What's up, Vaping Swag? I'm doing your juice review soon. Yeah, it's been crazy. Anyway, very soon. And it's good to see you. Great job on the shirts, man. The Coil War shorts, everyone loves them. So thank you so much. Anyway, making builds, I mean, the possibilities really are endless. You can stack ribbon wire, you can stack it horizontally too, rather than vertically, I suppose, if you want to. There's even, flat wire, which is basically just really thick ribbon wire, and people just wrap regular coils with that. There's corrugated builds. There's a braid that I want to try with ribbon wire. There's a lot. You can do a lot with it. But the best thing to do with it, if you ask me, the thing that we've seen the most sort of innovation from is in staple style builds, and in Staggerton style builds, and in builds that require that stacked ribbon wire. And it's a skill that's hard to learn, if you ask me. It's something that I struggled with for a very long time, learning to stack ribbon wire and do it properly so that the coil wraps right. But it's one of those things that's worth learning if you're interested in coil building, which you're watching the show, so I hope you are. There are certain skills that you acquire while you're learning to build. The ability to make a Clapton coil, the ability to make a fused Clapton coil, an alien coil. Those, well, not so much, kind of the alien coil, I guess, but really things like basics, like stacking ribbon wire, twisting wire, Claptoning, that kind of stuff. These are the basics by which a lot of other builds come out of. These are the things that you learn. They're sort of gateways into learning to do other things, and that's where learning to stack ribbon wire like that really comes in handy. because it opens you up to doing other kinds of things down the road. Once I've got my 28 gauge twisted wire up around the stack of ribbon wire, what I do to anchor it, there's lots of different things that you can use to anchor it. I've always been a big fan of hot glue. I've always been a big fan of tape. Tape works really well. I like using tape. You can do it with just a 40 gauge as well if you wanted to, but I like using tape a lot. What I do with tape is I set up, a few pieces strategically. Like I'll put like 3-4 pieces on the table. I'll put 3-4 pieces behind me over here on the buffet or whatever, and they're strategically placed so I can grab them when I need them. It's good to have. My general rule is whatever I think I need for tape, I put out twice as much, just so I have it accessible in case I screw something up with tape. Shut up, Rambo. I know you can make Claptons. But the way I use tape is I just fold it over the wire, and then using my nails, using the tips of my fingers, I'll sort of push it into those crevices of the wire, and that'll get it good and tight there. From there, I just cut off the excess. That's all there is to it. The way I do it, there's some people are so pretty with their tape and their presentation with their tape, and I'm always like in awe of it. But I've never been I guess I'm not that meticulous. I'll just fold tape over and I'm good to go. But I'm in awe of these people that make these beautiful tape structures and craft on their wire for some reason. I mean, it's very appealing to look at for sure. Paper clips are great. I love working with paper clips. Dwayne will tell you that he really likes working with the little squeezy thing that hangs down from a hoodie. Sorry about the train. I don't have a hoodie that has one of those things. The little thing that, it's on the strap, on the drawstring for the hoodie, and it moves when you hold it. Yeah. Other people are big fans of key rings. A lot of people really like working with key rings. I can't imagine working with key ring, honestly. I feel like, some of them are tight. Maybe one of the looser key rings would work, but some people swear by them. I love working with paper clips. I also really like working with my wife's. The Waffles gave me a bunch of these hair clips, and they work awesome. I love working with those. But I try to avoid it when I'm working with ribbon wire. The less strain I can put on ribbon wire, the better. Just because if something crunches down on it too tight or crunches down on it in the wrong way, then your ribbon wire is bent and you're pretty much fucked. You wasted that entire bit of ribbon wire. And it's not something that's really fixable. So paper clips are great for something like that. The hair clips I don't really use for that. I bet that Dwayne's tool, the cord lock, that's what you call it, cord lock. I bet that would work really well on ribbon wire. I'm kind of careful with the way I treat the ribbon wire, just because, like I said, if one wrong move and you pretty much have to start over. Ribbon wire is not very forgiving. If you bend it the wrong way, it's just not going to work again. So, on ribbon wire, you've used key rings? Really? I guess it depends upon the weight of the key ring. Some of my key rings are like really heavy. It's like you have to pry that thing open. You know what I mean? Maybe like a looser key ring? I don't know. The eye goggles. The eye goggles really come in handy. I use them often. Not as often as I used to, but I do still use them. I got them on Amazon. I've got a link in a bunch of my build videos to them. It's an affiliate link, so if you use it, thanks. Anyway, but no, it's Amazon. Just search for magnified goggles if you don't want to click the link. They'll pop right up. From there, what I do once I've got that wire all situated on the far end by the swivel tools, I'll go ahead and I'll put a bit of more tape down by the end of the wire, and then I'll just go ahead and seat it on into the chuck. You'll notice that the drill is seated on my left side, not my right side, because I am right-handed, and it does make sense. I was building the wrong way for the longest time. I was building so that my drill was on my right, and I did all my work with my left hand. It's not the ideal way to do it if you're right-handed like me. I guess I always thought that was the right way to do it, because in every build video I've ever seen, the drill is always on the other side. Maybe there's just more left-handed builders. I don't know. Anyway, I'm a right-handed builder, so it needs to be on this side. Getting everything into the chuck, it's delicate. Remember, it's ribbon wire. Be careful. Wrap it really good with the tape when you're getting it into the chuck, because you don't want to crank down too hard with that chuck. Be gentle at first. Tighten down the chuck a little bit, see how it is. Make sure that the ribbon wire is staying oriented correctly. Tighten it down a little bit more. Take your time getting everything into the chuck. With this particular build, I'm not actually using the drill to spin this helix into place. I suppose you could if you are really, really, really comfortable with the drill, but I've never heard of anyone doing this build with the drill. This build is done by hand, basically. We're basically hand wrapping this. I'm going to use 36 gauge, and we're going to hand wrap it into the gaps in that twisted wire is what we're going to do. The Kennedy 24, I've never used the Kennedy 24. I used the original Kennedy, and I've used every other, Kennedy-like device under the sun. I mean, everything, there's so many devices that are built to be like the Kennedy now. Are they like the Kennedy? No. I've vaped on an authentic Kennedy, and I've vaped on a clone Kennedy. The authentic definitely is awesome. Yeah, so that's what we're doing here. I'm going to minimize the chat. No, I'm not. It's fine. You get an idea what I'm doing. Maybe I can move it. Yeah, we'll move it. There we go. We'll move the chat over this way for now, just so we can see what's going on a little better. Getting it started. What it is using the flat tip pliers, jawless pliers here, because we don't want to mar the build, mar the wire as we're doing this. And what I do is I stay at first about one space behind where I am helixing this wire. This is the hard part here, is the first helix wrap. This is going to be a full helix, so we actually do this 3 times in total. Basically, you align the twists on the back and the front. It's the best way to think about it. What's in front of you, what's behind that, okay? So I'm counting 3 twists in between each wrap of the helix. I find a place to start the helix, find a good angle at which to put the wire over to the far end, and then it's a tug. Give it a slight tug while compressing the wire together with the pliers. That's what it is. I don't recommend using 40 gauge for this. I tried it with 40 gauge because I thought that would look pretty cool. I also thought, 2 strands of 40 gauge together. Maybe as you get better at making them, what you're seeing here is the first one of these that I've ever made. I've never made one of these before this one. So, it's, I'm learning as I'm doing a lot of these builds and teaching you guys as I'm learning, I guess. Informing you as I'm learning. You probably know what's going on already. But anyway, 36 gauge is what I would recommend using. It's going to, because in this process what you're doing is you're wrapping around the far end of your helix build here, far end of your wire. You're bringing it around, and you're holding it with the pliers, and you're tugging. You got to give it a good tug. Otherwise, it's going to wrap too loose. And if you wrap it too loose, then, you know, it's not going to wrap right. It's not going to look right. Exotic builds like this, staple builds like this, they can last a long while. They can last months. I mean, you can burn off the excess juice and then use them over and over again. They maintain very, very well. They maintain way better than just a regular, you know, basic wrap coil. Something about the way that, you know, juice collects around them, something about the exotic structure to them, the nooks and crannies, it's easier to burn off the excess juice when you're done. Gunk doesn't adhere to them. A lot of, you know, exotic builds the same way it does to a basic build, if you ask me. I just take out my cotton, burn off the excess juice, and while it's still hot, I run a bit of water over it, you know, just sear it all off, and it's like good as new. Same with pretty much every exotic build I've ever used. Yeah, they maintain great. And this particular build, what it does is it combines, you know, a twisted build and it combines, you know, a staple build. So flavor is just awesome. Flavor is just ridiculous. As you get, you know, further and further along, you sort of become more comfortable with, you know, the way that you're making this helix wire, and it becomes less of a pull motion when you're bringing the wire back to you, and more of a push the wire away from you, pull the wire toward you. Push the wire away from you, pull the wire toward you. And it becomes easier and easier as you go. You kind of find your rhythm with it. You just want to be careful not to miss those, you know, those wraps. If, you know, I'm one of those kind of, you know, kick yourself later kind of people. You know, I want to get through the wire and I'm excited to get through it. And then, you know, I realize that I miss a wrap somewhere and you know, I've gone too far and I can't go back anymore. If it's been like, you know, 4 or 5, you know, wraps, then I'll unravel it and I'll go back where I was. It's very forgiving wire using the 36 gauge. So you can do that without too much of an issue. Back it up, pick up where you were, move forward again, correct your mistake. Using something like 40 gauge, back to the question about the 40 gauge for this particular build. They're great for fused Claptons, they're great for aliens, they're great for regular Claptons, absolutely, but this particular build, you want some wire that can handle you pushing and pulling with it. You know, it's got to have a bit of play. What I do with the 36 gauge when I take it off the spool is I basically lock it into, you know, the little locking thing at the edge of the spool like that, and then I give it a little tug with the pliers, and that kind of straightens it out and makes it a little bit easier to work with. You see right there, I'm pulling that wire. I'm pulling it tight. I'm actually bending the whole wire while I'm doing that. You know, you can see that wire giving. You can see that I'm tugging on this wire. I'm putting, you know, weight behind that pull, you know. Fuse Claptons for, I mean, 40 gauge for fuse Claptons, it's awesome, you know. I mean, the lighter gauge you can go on something like a Clapton or a fuse Clapton is the better the flavor is going to be. The lower the gauge that you can get, the better the flavor. You can go above 40 and 42. I mean, some people use 50. I mean, 50 is, I've never used it. My understanding is it's like working with hair. So, the lower you can go on the fused wire, the thinner the wire is, the higher the gauge is, the more the flavor is going to be. So, all about that. And I really wanted to do this with, you know, a lighter gauge too, but it's too much. 40 gauge can't handle me pulling at it the way I want to, you know. It's really a matter of gripping that wire really good with those pliers and giving it a really, really good tug, you know. The first wrap, the first helix is the hardest one because you're kind of laying the groundwork with which you're going to helix the other two wires. So it really pays to make sure that you're hitting all the right, twists. You're not missing a spot. I'll be honest, there are definitely a few spots that I missed here. A good kit for installing pre-built coils. I don't know. Two kits that I use often. I actually use tools from both these kits. Is the Geek Vape kit and the Coil Master kit. I use both of them. I also have a bunch of my own tools, but I like these because everything's nice and organized for me. And so far I've managed to keep it that way. For the most part, they're both pretty good kits. I did a review on the Geek Vape kit at one point. I have a review coming up for the Coil Master kit. I've been using that thing a lot. They both have their, their positives and their negatives, but they're both good kits. The Geek Vape kit I actually bring to work with me all the time, just because it's so compact. I just throw it in my I bring a backpack to work because, I bring my laptop, I bring, my hard drive, I bring all that kind of stuff so I can edit and stuff while I'm at work. But, this is great for me to have while I'm on the go, just in case I need to fix a build or if I get bored. Sometimes I bring wire with me to work, just in case. This kit is, just a little bit more complete, if you ask me. The thing is that some things in this kit, you can get better quality by buying your own stuff. That's the thing. And that's the true of both those kits. If you go out to a Home Depot, you get yourself a single pair of pliers, you get yourself a single pair of wire cutters, it's going to be better than your kit wire cutters. It's going to be better than your kit pliers. That right there is the pliers. The pliers I'm using in this video, the pliers from the Geek Vape kit. And that's only because I don't actually have a pair of jawless pliers myself. So using those, saved me a trip to the hardware store. Yeah, someone was, what was I going to say? I was going back to a question about the magnified goggles. There's also these like magnified lamps. That's like the next thing I want to get, just because, so I don't have something on my face. I feel like getting one of those magnified lamp could help me a little bit more. Also, to be honest with you, I build, in front of a macro lens, when I'm doing this stuff, so I don't really use them as much as I used to because, I use that macro lens to record for you guys, but it's kind of, it kind of works for me building too. So, would I say go out and buy yourself a macro lens to start building? No, probably not. I don't think you need to do that, but definitely magnified goggles will help, or one of those magnified lamps. The magnified lamps are pretty cool because the thing about the goggles is that when they're on, you have to get in there really close. Like the focal length of those lenses, it's only a few inches. So you got to get right on top of what you're doing when you're taking a look at what you're working with. And I like them. They're a lifesaver in that way, but at the same time, it's like there might be something better out there. I've been thinking about picking myself up one of those magnified lamps. I think that would help. This is a long process, as why you're still seeing me helix through this first helix, the first time around with the 36 gauge wire. Point is, it takes patience to get from point A to point B with this build. It's a matter of little by little, taking the wire around, letting go, picking it back up, dragging it back, putting it back around, coming in underneath, pulling it back, dragging it around, little by little. And also moving those pliers behind it. So you have to understand that that's what you're getting into when you're starting to set up for this build. You're in for, a bit of work. getting from point A to point B here, getting through this build. It's not fast, so yeah, but it's worth it. It's a very, very flavorful build. It's a very, very cloudy build. It's also fun. It's a meditative kind of thing, getting through it. It's learning to mind your breathing, just sit with the build for a while, you know. It's fun getting through it, really. When do I sub-ohm tank vape? I don't really. I'm not a big fan of sub-ohm tanks. I like to build. I like to use my rebuildable devices. When I sub-ohm tank vape, it's because I'm evaluating a product already, really. Otherwise, I'm always vaping on something that I built, some new exotic coil that I'm trying out. You know, a staple coil, an alien coil, a Staggerton, something I built for Coil Wars. You know, something like that. That's what I'm normally rocking. A device with a rebuildable deck. I mean, there's still good sub-ohm tanks out there. Don't get me wrong. I mean, sub-ohm tanks are great. My wife uses nothing but sub-ohm tanks, and I think that they're a great move away from, you know, cigarettes. Absolutely. But, you know, for me personally, what I like to vape is something that I built myself, something that I spent time with, just because it's creating a piece of art that you can, you know, you can vape and enjoy. It's just fun, and they're more flavorful and they're more cloudy, mainly more flavorful. See, exotic builds like this, they create flavor by trapping juice in these caverns and these crevices that you just superheat and vaporize juice with. They capture more juice is the thing. Now, the thing about something like a, you know, a tank, a sub-ohm tank, or something like that, well, the way it's creating flavor is, you know, by the ingenuity of whatever coil you put in there, you know, by the amount of wicking that's in there, by the, you know, the restriction of the tank, that kind of thing. That's what's creating the flavor there. You know, yeah, that's the way that I built most of my set before I got, you know, these things. I built by hand. I went down to the Home Depot and little by little, you know, put piece by piece, put together, you know, my toolkit. And it wasn't something that happened all at once. Mr. Rambo, he actually works in an industry where he has a bunch of tools. So he probably had a good way to start a good bit of kit already. So, and he's always telling me about the craziest tools that he's using. So, you know, if you work with tools already, building is just, you know, kind of a natural progression, if you ask me. Best build that I ever put together for myself. My favorite coil I ever put together is that hybrid coil I did for Coil Wars. Awesome looking, vape beautiful, delicious, just a great vape. I love a good alien coil too. Good alien staple coil is great. Aeronaut V2 is still my favorite, absolutely. I generally, since the Aeronaut V2 came out, I've been using the V2. I haven't really been using the Aeronaut V1 since I got the V2. Ceramic coils, I hate ceramic coils. I haven't met a ceramic coil that I like yet, honestly. I'm open to it. You know, I'm not closed-minded about any kind of coil or any kind of device. It's just, you know, I haven't met a ceramic coil that I've liked. The Aeronaut is not meant for dual coils. You can put dual coils in there. There's a few ways to do it. I've got, you know, a bunch of build videos that I've done with the Aeronaut up. One of them I put in dual coils using a pair of swans. Another one I put dual coils in there with fused Claptons side by side each other. Both are possible. They both work. But the thing about the aeronaut is, if you ask me, it doesn't need dual coils. If you think about it, what this coil would work great in the aeronaut as a single coil. What this coil is, technically, it's a quad coil, really, with this two, twisted coils on either side. And down the middle, you've got, a staple coil. That's a whole other coil. So really, it's like 5 coils working together here in a lot of ways. If you consider, the staple stack a single wire, if you consider each twist on either side the frame's a single wire, in a lot of ways, it's kind of like a 5-core coil in a lot of ways. The 36 gauge on the outside just works to kind of keep everything sandwiched together, kind of like a fused Clapton does, combining 2 wires together. Fused Clapton, in a lot of ways, it's kind of like a dual coil. I mean, if you want to get, sort of technical about everything, you know what I mean? I'm interested in trying the Goon LP. No one has sent it to me, so I don't know. I might go out and buy it. I've got a lot of stuff to review right now, so I kind of feel weird going out and buying more stuff that I want when I've got so much stuff that I need to review and it's kind of piled up. So I kind of feel bad. So I've kind of held off on getting the Goon LP. I really wanted to try it. I'll probably still pick it up. I really want it. Anyway, at this point, what we're doing is we're going back through and we're putting in the second helix wrap. The second helix wrap goes through a lot easier than the initial helix wrap because basically you've laid the groundwork with that first one, and now the second one, you're just kind of following in its footsteps, more or less. You're following in front of it. The wire just goes one twist over. That's all there is to it with the second helix wrap. You follow along. I follow along with the toothless pliers the same exact way, just little by little, moving through it, pulling the wire toward me, looping it around, pushing it away, and then pulling it back toward me again and again and again. That's all it is. Just sitting patiently, working through the wire little by little. It's an exercise in patience, absolutely, and in precision. You got to look real close at what you're doing and try not to miss a wrap somewhere. If you look, it looks like that's a missed wrap right there. I've got, there's a space where there's 4 twists right there, right next to the chat bubble. There's a space where there's 4 twists where there should be 3 twists. So that's where I actually ended up cutting the wire and making it into a dual coil. That spot right there where I fucked up. And I think I'm realizing it right now while I'm building it. I'm like, oh shit, oh well. But it's kind of cool. You can mess around with different angles, and you can mess around with different ways to build the wire. Different angles you can use, different wires you can use. You don't necessarily need to helix everything with the same wire with 36 gauge. You don't need to use twisted wires for the frames. You could do a helix coil for the frames. You could do Clapton coils for the helix wraps. You can do ribbon wire for the helix wraps. You can do anything with a build like this. You can vary it up as much as you want. Down the middle, instead of staples, you could do other twists. You could have a helix coil on the inside and a helix coil on the outside and twist them opposite ways and then have the wires crisscrossing. You can do all kinds of crazy fun stuff with a helix coil. It's pretty endless and it's a lot of fun. This is the first staple helix that I ever put together. I had a lot of fun doing it. And, this is where I thought about stopping at first. I thought about just leaving it like this, where it was two helixes together, then a gap, two helixes, a gap. I just kind of love the look of that. I thought it just looked really cool when all was said and done. But ultimately, I decided that, I really wanted to do the full helix. I really wanted to fill in that third wrap. So that's what I did. And you can't see it because I'm over here, but basically, when I anchored this on into the chuck, I left one bit of wire sticking out, and I've used that wire for every one of the helix wraps, getting it started. And going over the tape is kind of how I set myself up getting started. I'm trying to optimize my space. I'm trying to use as much of that wire as I can. So I don't want to put in a bunch of, practice or a bunch of, wraps that take up space right in the beginning. I'm trying to use every bit of that wire that I can. That's the way I normally build. When I start a Clapton coil, I start Claptoning from the moment I hit the trigger on the drill. I've gotten to that point where I'm trying to save as much of that space and get the most out of that build as I possibly can. That's what I do there when I'm bringing it over the tape there. Pennsylvania, I like that. That's funny. Pennsylvania. I haven't seen it. That comment about, the backlog. The backlog is the backlog, and it's whatever. But I haven't, seen any too much of a slowdown in new things coming in, despite these new vaping laws that are enacted. But I mean, that's mostly China. I don't know how seriously China is taking everything. I'm kind of curious to see what happens over the next couple of years. So it could be really interesting how the ban affects these imports from China. Are we going to really see a slowdown from FASTTECH? I don't know. I think that we're going to see a lot of raids, like customs raids and all that kind of stuff, mail being sort of stopped. It'll be interesting to see what happens. I'm not too worried about it, though, to be honest with you. I mean, to be honest with you, a lot of the stuff that's in my backlog is in my backlog because I really wasn't that interested in it. So I'm going to get to it, but there are things things I'm more interested in doing. So I haven't really worried about it. Anyway, favorite mod to run exotic builds on? Definitely my DNA 200s. I've got two of them. I want more, just because I can build down to 0.5 if I want to. I don't really. I try to keep everything above 1 ohm just so that I can take advantage of the wattage. This build ohms out at about 0.11 ohms right now. I think that maybe the connections might need a little bit of a tightening because normally it ohms out at about 0.09. So, but that's about as low as I kind of try to build, just because I'm trying to build to the limits of my device, the DNA 200. This particular topper, though, this coil art combo, I can vape this thing at 200 watts, and when I vape it at 200 watts, I'm like, it can handle more. I could probably pump this up to 300 watts if I had a device that could handle it. What I need is a DNA 250, and they have these 300 watt plus devices coming out now. I haven't had the opportunity to try one. Honestly, the DNA 200 is just a really great device. Anything with the DNA 200 in it, because it's accurate and you can build really low on them. I don't use mechs. The Waffles doesn't like me using mechs, so yeah. Would you run one of these crazy Petri RTA? Yeah, I mean the Petri. I mean you have to build it in consideration of what it is. I mean it doesn't have it has really good airflow. Don't get me wrong, but it is an RTA. take what happened with the coil art, the Mage GTA, the other device I did when I was doing this review, the other device I talked about. Now, that airflow is still tight in comparison to something like an RDA that's designed for blowing clouds and exotic builds. It's still going to be tight. So, yeah, you can, but I would use something like 32 gauge for the, for the twist, and I'd only use like maybe 4 strands of ribbon wire. I'd build it so that it would ohm out higher as possible. Wrapping this coil once everything's all said and done. I got to tell you, 0.3 ribbon wire is an absolute joy to wrap. It's wonderful. When I wrap staple coils, when I wrap, 0.5 staple coils, I kind of hold my breath. I'm like, is it going to work? Is it going to? Because when you wrap a staple coil, it's a little scary. At least I get a little scared because if you wrap it the wrong way, that shit warps. It gets wonky. And if it gets wonky, there's no fixing it generally. That's just a fucked coil. So 0.5 ribbon wire, you can spend all that time making a build like this, and when it comes time to wrap it, it's kind of like cross your fingers, say a prayer, hope for the best. But the 0.3 ribbon wire, oh my goodness, those 0.2 millimeters of thickness, having them that much thinner, those 0.2 millimeters, it makes all the difference. It's like wrapping a regular wire. It's awesome. I can't recommend it more. If you're into staple coils, but you hate wrapping them, or you get nervous when you wrap them, 0.3 ribbon wire just makes it so easy. Like, I was experimenting with a bit of that I had left over, and I wrapped it kind of wonky on purpose, and I was actually able to straighten it out, and it looked like nothing had happened. It was so cool. Yeah, they're really easy to wrap. Don't ever, in my opinion, don't ever use 0.8 for anything with a staple. I have tried. I've gotten close to wrapping it right, but no, it's way too thick. Trust me. Placing it into the deck. This is the shuriken style deck here, and this is true of a lot of clamping style decks I find. The way I like to build them is, I will put the, I'm glad I'm not alone, Keith, thank you. So what I like to do when I build them is I put it in one coil, clip it, take it out, put it in the other coil, clip it to size, and then I anchor them both in together with 2 screwdrivers. It just is the easiest way I've found to build these sorts of decks, these sorts of clamping style decks in the vein of the Goon and the vein of the Shuriken. When you're doing dual coils. When you're doing single coils, you can kind of go to town and just shove things in there. The Aeronaut is not like other clamping style decks in that, it's a single coil. So you don't have to worry about where that coil ends up so much, But that technique seems to work fairly well for me. I haven't run into too much trouble with it at all. And from there, it's just a matter of, shaping the coil. Pushing the driver in and out of the coil, moving it around, getting that coil situated where you want it to be in terms of, the way I shape it is in terms of the airflow. I usually like to shoot for my airflow coming right at my coils. A lot of people will argue, they'd like them to come underneath the coil, that kind of thing. While we're building the Mage. Did I put the wrong build in the Mage? Yes, essentially. I mean, that's what I said in the review. I mean, the Mage is not built for, it doesn't have the airflow for these kinds of coils. I mean, it does and it doesn't. I can vape the build I put in there, 3 wraps like this. I can vape it at, 90 watts, 100 watts, 120 watts comfortably. But, that ohmed out at 0.09. No, No, it ohmed out at 0.11 with those 3 wraps there. So in an RDA, it would be fine. It would vape no problem. In this particular RTA, it's just not going to work right. You know, it's not enough airflow for it. So, like I said in the review, I mean, the Mage GTA is not a bad device. I mean, RTA that you can vape at 90 watts, you know, 120 watts, whatever. I mean, that's saying a lot for that RTA, you know. But in terms of, you know, the kind of builds that you can put in that deck, you know, that's what I'm saying about coil art. You know, certain devices that they put out, you know, it's like they invite some amazing kinds of builds and they have a name like coil art. So you expect that you can put in, you know, all these exotic builds in them, but in generally you can't. This particular deck you can, and this particular airflow is great for it. But that particular device just kind of let me down in that way. You know, looking at that, I thought it would be able to handle a lot more, and then I felt the airflow, and I was like, ugh. Anyway, in terms of getting the coil glowing upright, Staple, a lot of devices like this, you know, you want to watch out for the way that coil is heating up. When you're first starting it out, I wasn't talking because I was responding to a question, but I was just pulsing the wire a bit, pulsing the coil. And it was lighting up little by little and the color's changing. Well, the color changing is great, not just for getting really cool pictures and putting it on Instagram, but it's also great for seeing how that coil is going to light up, making sure that it's not too many hot spots here and there. And then you know you can start to put more and more heat to it little by little. You're looking for that color so that it's got deeper colors in the middle, lighter colors on the outside. What's going on here is that you can see that these wraps, these twists are actually kind of arcing. You don't want that. You want that right there, you know, where the wire is just kind of, one wire is heating up faster than the other. You want to be on the lookout for that kind of. You want to watch out for what that wire is doing and make sure that by the time that you're done getting everything all situated, it's heating evenly. You want to make sure that it's going to vape without scalding you in certain ways. Like that right there, you know, is kind of what you want to see. You want to see it heating evenly throughout the coil, as much as possible is what you're going for. I don't use mix at all. The Waffles doesn't allow it, Jason. I'm not, you know, I like regulated devices for a lot of reasons. One is, you know, it's safety. I like having that circuitry between me and the battery. I like having that bit of protection there. It's also a case of happy wife, happy life, you know? And I also like regulated devices that allow me to, have the same sort of vape from the beginning of the battery cycle to the end of the battery cycle. That's what I really like. That's one thing that's really nice about the DNA 200. You know, from the beginning of the battery cycle to the end of the battery cycle, it's kind of allows for a consistent vape all the way through. That's one thing that's really nice about it. It's also what I really like about the K-Box. A lot of devices from Kanger do that. It's really nice. You know, they hit the same way from the beginning to end. They don't take single battery 26650s. I hate them. I've never met a mod that has a single battery 26650 that vapes right from beginning to end. It always, like, the moment it drops below 3.6 volts, I can feel it. You know, I can't stand that. I hate that feeling. Like the battery's draining, and I hate it. I like just a consistent vape personally. Anyway, question about Claptons, but spacing the wraps, like staggered Claptons. You know, there's nothing. I'm not a big fan of Clapton coils, to be honest with you. Yeah, I don't really like Clapton coils on their own. I like Clapton coils I like fused Clapton coils, really. Clapton coils on their own, it's just, they just have a slow ramp up. They provide good flavor, but the ramp up's too slow for me. They are, I don't care for them. They don't maintain well. They don't last like other exotic builds, if you ask me. I prefer things like alien coils are great for that kind of thing. Um, just getting into building, it's been a lot of fun. Can you do a drip shot, something where you drip the juice onto a wicked coil and pulse it? I do that in most of my videos, you know. Anyway, that's it. That's all I had for you. Let me switch back over here. Okay, so what I was gonna say was a couple things at the end I wanted to talk about was some people always ask me what kind of cotton I use. Um, this is the Cartel mods DNA 200. They only made like 300 of them. I got mine secondhand. They come up now and again. Uh, it's a good device. Kind of. It's the metal on it. It kind of gets it picks up every scratch. You know, the metal on the top and the bottom gets scratched so easily. But other than that, it's a great device. Anyway, people are always asking me what kind of cotton I use. I'm not picky about cotton. Cotton is cotton to me. Um, the cotton I was using in this video, I think, was some Muji probably. You know, I'm not picky about cotton. I use whatever I have around. Um, the Limitless box, I liked it all right. It was okay. It was kind of ugly. It vaped well. I didn't really have too much of an issue with the way it vaped. Um, and there was something else I wanted to talk about, but I forget what it was. I don't think it was that important. Um, yeah, exactly. Like Mr. Cow to a Cow says, there's things on Amazon you can buy where it's like 100 pads. That's the shit I use normally. I mean, if some people send me cotton, I'll use that cotton just because it was sent to me, but I don't really care. For me, cotton is cotton, and it doesn't really enter into my thinking about what I'm going to put in a device personally. Um, but yeah, a lot of people really care about that kind of stuff. The only cotton I've ever had that I hated was this stuff called Foggy Gnome. It was terrible. I ended up doing a review where I turned it into a snowman. Anyway, yeah, I mean the Limitless box was ugly. It had some interesting features. I want to say I don't really remember it too well. I haven't used it in a while. Honestly, the devices that I use the most are my DNA devices, and I've gotten really, really into using the Kanger drip box, which I think I left upstairs, but I use that thing constantly now. I love the drip box. Um, I'm hoping to have the review out for that tomorrow. I hope so. I don't know. I am on Instagram. I'm at homeboyjosh is my Instagram name. I've also run with Dwayne Rambo, Mr. Rambo. We run at Coil Wars. So you can follow me on Instagram on both. I have never used nor heard of Sell You Cotton. I don't know what that is. Um, yeah, but I'm on Instagram on both those accounts. You should definitely follow the Coil Wars page. There are some amazing builders submitting to the Coil Wars page. There's about 2 weeks left to get your Helix build submitted over to the Coil Wars page. Um, that what wire is Josh building? I think Mitch might be a little bit late, but we were building a Staple Helix coil. Yes, the 160-watt drip box. I kind of love it. I want to have its babies. Um, I also have been using the Drip Easy. I think it's a piece of shit, But the 160 watt box is awesome. And I also really like the 200 watt K box. I use that thing all the time. Japanese cotton or regular cotton? Japanese cotton, absolutely. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Cotton doesn't matter so much to me, but yes, I like the Japanese cotton over cotton balls. I've used cotton balls, not a fan of it. The Aeronaut RDA, I think you can only buy it from his website, aeronautvapes.uk or something. I have it listed in the description on the video. I can't think of, I think it's aeronautvapes.uk or something. And you know what? I think it is like $20 shipping or something like that. For me, it's worth every penny. I mean, when the when he had the original aeronaut and he came out with the tubes, the extra tubes that you can get for it, I went and I bought them. I didn't even think twice about it. He ended up sending them to me in addition, I think. But before he could send them, I'd already bought them just because I love it that much. Stainless, yes, I got myself a bunch of stainless steel wire. I got myself a bunch of Canthol from KB, all kinds of wire. This particular build, it uses, I'm trying to think if there were any aspects that were Canthol. I don't think so. I think it was just nichrome and stainless steel was all I used in this build. Yeah. Um, I also really, I've heard good things about the. No, I don't know. I need to research more squonkers, regulated squonkers. Um, the Lost Vape squonker, I kind of want to try. Pretty much anything that can do, more than 100 watts. It's a squonker. I definitely want to try at some point because that squonk box is like the coolest thing that I've ever used. I mean, I love it. I love it. Shut your mouth. I actually really like cotton bacon. I like it a lot. Cotton bacon is really good. I'm a fan of it. Will I go out and buy it? No. That's what I'm saying. Like, if someone sends me cotton, I'll use it. Will I go out of my way to get a particular kind of cotton? No. The best cotton I've ever used is the Kendo Vape cotton. I love the Kendo Vape cotton. The original stuff, not the new stuff. Like the Kendo Gold, I don't like that shit. But the original one was awesome. Uh, I don't know what that is. The Vapor Dynamics. I don't know what that is. Um, yeah, that's what saying. Therion, that's a cool looking squonker. Um, the lot the yeah the whole the people that make the Therion, they have some really cool looking devices as a whole. But yeah, I mean, I need more than 75 watts personally. Roman, no. I might, do a build video using a mech mod at some point, but I really don't use mechs. Like I'm not kidding. The Waffles really doesn't like me using unregulated devices. My wife is not a fan of them. She likes to make sure that I'm using regulated devices. If she sees me using a mech mod, she's like, "You can use that for the review, and that's it." I mean, I use it anyway, so I can try it out. I do it when she's not around, so she can't like, glare at me. But I mean, I try to stay away from unregulated devices as much as possible. I really like regulated mods as a whole. So, you know, I'll check the message as soon as I can. Um, what were the wires that you used and their gauges? Okay. The twists, once again, were 28 gauge nichrome from Lightning Vapes, actually. The staple was zero point 0.3 ribbon from KB. And the Helix, all three of the Helix wraps were 36 gauge 316 stainless steel from KB. Yeah, I'm totally whipped, man. Totally whipped. But in the best way. What camera do I use? And my macro lens? All right. Um, this is what I use. This is my Sony AX33. It's on a really shitty tripod right now. I actually have two tripods. This is my shitty one because I was making a video earlier today, actually. But this is what I use. It normally just looks like this. That's it. It's 4K capable, so we're future-proofed. I kind of went over this a little bit in the behind-the-scenes video, but I'll go through it again really quick. It's 4K capable, but I only shoot in 1080 because last time I tried 4K, a bunch of you guys, not you guys in particular, but a bunch of my viewers told me that they couldn't see the video. So I really only shoot in 1080 right now. Something about the way that it exported, I don't really know why. But this is a wide angle lens, and this is what I use for my FaceTime segments. I like the wide angle because it captures chicken and it captures the artwork over there really well. Right now I'm just using the FaceTime cam. I've actually got the Logitech that I normally use for the live videos, and that's a wide angle. So I like the way that captures it. But what this is also is a macro lens. That's it right there. That's a macro lens right there. But this is actually a really shitty macro lens. I have another one which I can't put hands on this very minute. I can't put my hands on it. I think that it's in a drawer somewhere. I know where it is. I can't get to it this minute. But I've got another macro lens that fits on this thing, and it's just a little bit better. This one works fine, but the thing is that it warps everything kind of bad, so I'm not a huge fan of it. I've used it in videos before. If you see like the edges are kind of warped on some of my videos because I was too lazy to go grab the other one, and I just spun this thing off. It works, but it's just not as good as the other one I have. But that one fits on here too in the same way. The Nikon, that's this guy right here. Right now I've got a zoom on here. This is just a zoom lens. I was using it for whatever, but I almost never use the zoom lens. And I've got a, this I use for, a lot of the coil shots. The stills that were in that video all came from this camera, but I use extension tubes with the, I use extension tubes with this lens. That's what I use. So that's what I use for the macro there. And I basically do focus stacking to get those shots. But it's fun to use. I mean, these are things that, I acquired over time. I didn't jump in, go buy that camera, go buy the lens attachments for it, go buy the Nikon all at once. So, I mean, if you're interested in taking, macro shots of coils and taking video with a macro lens, what I usually recommend to people is get something like this. Well, they're not in there right now, but this is the box that, a bunch of macro lenses came in that were for your smartphone. When I started my YouTube channel, I just filmed on my smartphone. That was it. And, when I first started taking pictures of my coils, I did it with my smartphone. I grabbed, a really cheap, like $20 macro lens or $15 macro lens set from Amazon, and I used that. That's it. It's a D3400 on the Nikon. But yeah, I mean that's what I started with, and I realized pretty quick that I wanted more quality. So I went out and I got the AX33, the Sony, and I used that. I was really happy with it for a long time. And then I realized that I wanted something where I could get macro shots. So I got the macro lens, and I used that for a long time. I was really happy. And then I realized I wanted a wide angle for certain shots. So I went out and I got the wide angle lens. And then this past Thanksgiving, I realized that I wanted to take more shots for Instagram and more, macro photography and get really into macro photography. So I went out and got the Nikon. I wanted to do sort of a mix of product photography and, macro photography for coil building. So I went out and got the Nikon. These are not things that I went out and got all at once. These are things that I've acquired over time. And that's something I always try to get across to people when they ask me about making YouTube videos or taking photos. I mean, in addition to those things and the tools I've acquired for building, I'm not talking about these things that were sent to me, but all the tools I bought individually for building. The lighting setup that I have 2 LED lights here. I have, a MacBook that I use for, editing. They're not things that I went out and got right away, So when I first started doing reviews, I, recorded what I had. I didn't go out and buy a bunch of stuff off the rip. That's just something I try to get across to people when they ask, because I feel like a lot of people think that, they need to dive right in. And I mean, I suppose that's one school of thought. You can dive right in, but, I find that, if you dive right in, YouTube and coil building and taking coil photos isn't for everyone, so, I'd say find out if it's for you the least expensive way possible. And as you go through it, you decide that you want to get more into it and you want to acquire more stuff to use and things that can bring out what you're trying to get across better. And you acquire the tool that you need to accomplish that task when you realize that that's something that you're trying to accomplish. Does that make sense? Anyway. My favorite reviewers on YouTube. Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of great ones out there. I mean, when I started vaping, I really gravitated toward Rip Trippers, Grim Green, Twisted 420, Suck My Mod. Ronnie Cash is in the chat. He's really good. Shout out to you, buddy. There's a lot of really great reviewers, and some reviewers that have come and gone, and I'm sad to have seen them go. People that started around when I did or a little after I did and, don't do it anymore. They fell off. They just don't, they're not on YouTube anymore. Daryl, Quest for Vape, he was one of my faves for a long time. I always thought he did a great job with his reviews, and I miss him. And we don't see him anymore. I miss that guy. There's a guy that went by Kicking Butts. He was really, really good. He was up and coming for a little while, and you don't hear from him anymore. There's Northern Fog. Northern Fog, when he came on, I saw some of his reviews, and I thought that he was one day going to have, he was just going to blow right past me when I saw him. I thought he did some of the best reviews I'd ever seen. He's not around anymore, I mean, he comes on once in a while, but, I don't really see very much of him. He puts out a video like maybe once a month or so. But that's what I'm saying. There's, you start out doing these reviews, and a lot of people just don't have the staying power. It's not that they weren't good. It's that, it's a level of commitment. Put it to you this way, when you're thinking of starting out reviewing, or if you're starting out coil building, not necessarily coil building. I mean, coil building anyone can do, but if you want to do it, publicly and put out, coil art kind of photos, and become good at it and become, I guess known for it, I guess you could say, you ask yourself, the question is, my buddy in New York used to put things to me this way, and he would say, what's your level of commitment? And he would hold out his fist like this. And it was kind of a game we played. We didn't actually play it, but it was sort of an imaginary game that we didn't play, and we used it to make a point. And you kind of put out your fist and you say, what's your level of commitment to the other person? And the idea is that they run at the fist as fast as they can. That's your level of commitment. How fast are you willing to run at that fist? It's going to knock you the fuck over. And how fast and how gracefully you're going to get back on your feet. That's the thing. Anyway, that was a lot of rambling, and a lot of it didn't have to do with building, and it was probably just a little bit more honest than an answer than you wanted, but that's the answer. Anyway, guys, that's about all I got for tonight. Um, how do you keep fused wire flat without clips or extra pieces? Fused Clapton wire, I don't have a problem keeping it flat. Fused Clapton wire, I just kind of go from one end to the other and it just kind of stays that way. If it gets twisted at all, you just kind of grab onto the end or opposite ends, switch back and forth with pliers and spin the opposite direction or the same direction until it kind of evens out. But you kind of get, a feel for it as you go, become better at making fused Claptons and all kinds of wire as you practice it. It's about practice, really. It's practice. That's all it is. Practice and repetition. But that was a good last question for the night, I think. I think we're going to call it. I stayed on a little bit longer than I thought I was going to. Wow, we're like about an hour and a half right now. Shit. That's way too long. Anyway, guys, that's enough of me. I bet you're tired of hearing my yap too. But it was fun. I had a lot of fun tonight. And we'll do this again soon. I actually spent the day making another Helix coil that I'm hoping to do another one of these with you guys next week. Sometime next week, so that should be fun. Anyway, till next time, I'm your homeboy Josh. Vape on, Vapers.